Chukwu ka anyị na-abata, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Anya bịawa ịsọpụrụ gị ugbu a, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Bịa o bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Bịa o bịakwute ya, bịa o bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Chukwu nna n'ụlọ gị ka anyị na-akpọ gị, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Otito na-adịrị gị.
Ndewo. Ndewo. Ekele dịrị Chineke, mma mmanụ. Ebe onye ọbụla nọ, ọ n'ọfịa, ọ n'ụzọ, ọ dịrị unu mma. I'm Okedibia, Dr. Wonyo Humphrey, and I'm your host on this wonderful show, Chiism Live. Chiism Live is a broadcast of the Global Faith Ministries of Chiism, a ministry of the Godian religion. And we give thanks to Chineke and the ancestors and gratitude to the founder of the Godian religion, Ahaike Oke Onyoha. And also, he's also Jinso, which is our equivalent to saint. He was made a saint before he left this earth. And we are so very grateful for that. So anyway, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'd like to, at this time, before we go into the program, I'd like to welcome my co-host, Idio Twaja, Yudi Onyoha. Yudi Akawo.
How you doing? No.
Great.
No. Every day above ground is a good day, so I'm excited about life.
It's a good day.
Yeah.
It's a good day. I would also like to welcome our guest, Nnamdi Osimiri, who is a motivational speaker, and always a joy to have on the show. Nnamdi, Ndewo.
Ndewo, greetings.
Ndewo, welcome, 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 welcome. I'd like to remind all of you that we'd like you to please consider getting membership into Chiism. If you go to Chiism, our website, chiism.org, you can register there to become a member. It's quite easy to do. We'd love to have you join us. And don't forget to join us every week on Chiism Live. Actually, it's supposed to be on Facebook, not off Facebook. But nonetheless, I'd like to welcome. I also ask you to please subscribe to Chiism Live on YouTube. We will appreciate that support. So don't think about that. Think about that today. If you haven't subscribed to Chiism Live on Facebook, on YouTube, please consider doing that. And also join us as a member on chiism.org. Membership is important. And so we're asking your support. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. Let me just welcome some of the individuals that are on this program today. Matthew Lewis Ndewo, thank you for joining us. And Stacy Ofebulam Ndewo, Dalo no. Stacy, thank you for joining us. And of course, Matt Lewis says Ndewo. And then North Ferratu Ndewo as well. Good morning, everyone, she says. And we have several people on different venues. We have some on Global Faith Ministries of Chiism Facebook, and then Chiism Live on YouTube. So anyway, and then of course, welcome Kunna Charles. Good to have you as always. Wonderful to have all of you join us today. And I'm sure more people will join us as we go along. But I want to ask you to please make comments that we can read and we can share. We'd like to share your thoughts and comment on them. And if you have any questions, we'd like to answer them. Okay. So thank you again for joining us. And we're going to get started. I think it's important to tell you what our focus, the focus of Chiism is, because I do get asked a lot of questions about Chiism. What is the focus? Well, the focus of Chiism is removing the cobwebs of the mind so that the spirit can reconnect with Chineke, Holy Spirit, divine mind. Chineke, who has many names in different tongues. We are disconnected, very disconnected. And the purpose of Chiism is to reconnect us. Remind you, right where you are, Chineke is no distance. Your connection to divine mind is what makes you powerful. And nobody can take that from you. If your mind is together and you understand that, nobody can take that from you. Once you can assert your power by understanding that you are connected to the Most High, nobody can take that from you. That is where your power is. If you believe in the source of life, Chineke, whatever name you call Chineke in your language, if you believe in honoring nature and you believe in honoring the ancestors and the sacredness of life itself and all its forms, and you're of high moral quality, and you have respect for elders, and you invest in our children, representatives of the future, and that you believe in the preservation of our positive cultures, you are a chaste or a guardian. That's it. It's that simple. If you believe in those principles, then you are one of us. What separates us may be just liturgical variations. That's about it. But what connects us is more than what separates us. What I just listed, those are the key things that hold us together, that connect us to the Creator. And so it's important for us to look at what connects us more than what separates us. It is not about what religion you believe in. It is about those principles that we all share. People have different paths. But the important thing is what connects us to the Most High. We all believe in Chineke, but though Chineke may have different names and different tongues. But religion was never a reason why African people went to war. Religion was never a reason for war. And so we need to begin to think like that. What do we have in connection with each other? What is it that actually, if we practiced it, would uplift the African world from where it is right now? Where it is right now, we are lowly. I'm sorry to say, it may offend some people. We are on the totem pole of the rest of the world. In the committee of world religions or spirituality, if that's the expression you prefer, we're on the totem pole because we are not raising ours. We're not raising our spiritual flag as high as everybody else is flying theirs. Instead, we step on ours and we beg to be accepted in someone else's vineyard. That's spiritual slavery. Let me say that again. When you have your own and you allow and you trample upon it, and you have other people, you beg other people for you to be accepted into their own spirituality. That's spiritual slavery. Instead, you need to find what's good about yours and practice it and present it to the rest of the world. That's what Chiism is doing. Presenting what's good about us, our connectedness to the Spirit, to the Most High, to the rest of the world. To say that we were never devoid of knowledge or connection with Chineke has been presented over the years, making it seem like Africans are spiritual beggars. We don't have nothing to contribute. Well, we do, and that's what the flag that Chiism is flying. Before we go into the discussion of today, which is quite exciting, let us offer prayer to Chineke. I ask all of you to just kind of bow your heads wherever you are, and let us just pray for this wonderful opportunity that we have today. Dear Chineke, please remind me that my days are numbered. Teach me that my time here in this life is precious so that I will not waste it. Chineke, please assist me to acknowledge how priceless every minute is so that I devote it to doing those things that will get me closer to you. Chineke, in the time I have right now. The time I have left, I don't know when it's my time to leave this earth. Please instruct me how to work for you. Teach me how to give cheerfully. Teach me how to share voluntarily. And teach me how to love completely. Dear Chineke, please recap for me that I cannot operate in selfishness, hesitation, fear, anxiety, or fury. Saturate my consciousness, glow, so that your abundant miracles will sparkle through my spirit into the world. Chineke, I ask you every day that I am awake, please help me to present my thoughts, my words, and all of my deeds in front of you for your evaluation. So if it meets your desire for me, Chineke, I ask that the prayer that I've asked for myself today, I offer for everyone who's on this show, everyone who's not, anyone in Africa, all over the world. Chineke, please, just take a moment today, whisper in our ears and just remind us that we are good enough. All we have to do is embrace and accept it and walk in holy boldness with your light inside, behind, in front, and underneath us. And so it is. Let us all please say, say, Yagazie. Now, let us talk about why we're here. What is the program? When the drum beats, I want you to imagine a scenario where you're dancing. As you dance, the music changes. Usually what happens when the music changes, you change your dance. You don't keep dancing the way you started dancing when the music was playing one way. What you have to do now is change your dance. This is where we are as a people. We are still dancing to the music played on us when people came on the shores with their spiritual traditions. I am not saying that we should abandon that camaraderie, that's the word, with other people. I'm just saying we have to be cognizant that this is 2021. We have to change with the times. We can't be stuck on old knowledge. Every cell in our bodies is different than the way it was 7 years ago. Every strand of hair we have in our body today is different. We change every day. The only problem is that our minds are not changing. We're still stuck. We blame other people, though, for being stuck, when, quite frankly, we have elected to stay stuck. We don't want to change. We just say, hey, reevaluate where you are. Look at our world. Everybody else is changing, but we're still hoping that something that was taught to us many years ago will move us forward in the 21st century. Yudi and Nnamdi, what are your thoughts on that? The need for us to move forward and not be stuck in the past.
It's
any one of you.
Yeah, it's imperative. I mean, first of all, I think there's a saying that goes that you cannot know where you're going if you don't know where you've been. Right? Your history is your connection to your past, your present, and your future. That's your blueprint. Right? The tragedy of this whole thing. It's just the fact that educational institutions have not really made any attempt to make teaching our history, our journey, paramount in our educational system, in our schools. Not in Africa, not outside of it, right? So it is sort of like you have the people that don't know what contributions they've made to civilized behavior. So it becomes very difficult for them to see where we're coming from, where Chiism is coming from, where people with a Pan-African mindset are coming from. The idea that for the community, for you to be successful, the community has to be successful. It's part of our African spiritual, way of doing things, right? The community comes first before the individual, as opposed to the reverse that was impaled into our minds, through foreign religion, where it says that it's your own personal salvation that is paramount. You take care of yourself first before anything else. So you create this me kind of culture where people are unable to see beyond what their responsibility to their communities are. We just don't see that.
Yes.
Every person that I've spoken with, it's always about your individual wealth. Make sure your kids are taken care of. Make sure that everything about you is taken care of. Outside of you, it is not important. What happens outside of you is not relevant. The more you have people looking up to you, the haves and the have-nots, that you have a whole lot of have-nots down here. You're one of the haves. As long as these people are looking at you as better than they are, that's what makes you happy. You don't feel the need to pull those people along. I was listening to a rap artist a couple of days ago, and he says that his idea of business, his way of living his life, is to make sure that everybody around him is also wealthy, is also rich, that he brings everybody along. So just in case things negative happen in his life, he could be able to go back to those people that he brought along and say, hey, brother, can you help me out with this? And they'll be able to do it. He'll be able to have the resources to do it. The resources becomes his community of friends. Our resources has to be our community. If our community is doing well, is thriving, if we understand how the world works, if we look at other communities outside of Africa and say, what is it that they're doing that we are not doing? Why is it okay for them to hold on to their culture, promote their culture, their spirituality, promote their science, their architecture, promote everything about them? Why is it that they can do it, but when we do it, somebody makes us feel guilty? When we do it, we feel like we're doing something wrong. Somebody has,
That's right. That's it.
Yeah, they put it in your mind that standing up for yourself is a sin. It goes contrary to what it is that they taught you. You have to live your life according to them. We have been redefined. And because we've been redefined, this is why there is difficulty in getting this information across to our people, that communal responsibility is paramount. Live and let live is the most basic African spiritual tenet. If we understand that, then we will understand that we have a right to be who we are under the sun by the grace of the Almighty Chineke. And if you don't like it, just like other cultures do, let the door hit you.
That's right. The key, well said. The key thing is for people to understand that life is not static. All right, we are all changing. Your body's changing. All right. And it's changing without your input. You're changing every single day. New nails coming up, you have nothing to do with that, right? New hair growth, you have nothing to do with that. All the things, your physical changes have nothing to do with you. The only thing that you really have a control over is your mind, and your mind controls what you were talking about. How you grow your community is part of your growth. That's what other people are doing as they are changing. Okay, as they change their minds, it incorporates also changing their environments, changing the conditions of their people. We haven't learned that. We haven't learned that change many changes that we can't control, but the one that we can control is our mind. But it seems like our mind is still back there. We lack trust. We don't trust each other. We refuse to do for each other, and yet we somehow want Chineke to intervene when things go wrong. Somehow we want Chineke to do something we've already been blessed with. That is the mind. Change it.
Yeah.
That's what you have a control over. Nandi, do you have something you want to add to that?
Yeah, very, very well said. I'm starting to live by a principle, and I've stated this a few times. It's a quote. What you say and what you think are two completely different things. What you say, the universe hears. What you think, the universe acknowledges and holds you accountable. One of the things that we are failing to do as a people on a physical, spiritual, mental, whatever connection you want to put it, is to say things that are going to hold us accountable when it comes down to our communal and spiritual growth. And everything starts on a spiritual level, right? At least when it comes down to where every other group, every other ethnicity, or every other person, or every person, period, stands. Because the mind is connected to the body and connected to the soul. So when you have someone else coming in and convincing you that on a spiritual level, your spiritual energy holds no weight because it's connected to you, someone else can come in and say, here is your spiritual wealth. You hardly have any. And we will dictate what your spiritual wealth is. So we'll guide you along. Therefore, what you say is completely different than what you think. When you start saying, yes, I'm African, but you're thinking like a Western, you're thinking with a Western mindset. It's not going to take you or anyone in your community anywhere on a level that promotes spiritual growth. And spiritual growth is connected to the mind and connected to the body. If you don't see yourself on a spiritual plane that is as high or as high as everyone else or at the same level as everyone else, then you are going to dictate yourself to be less. And so will everyone else. If you really think about it, the reason why Africa, let's just take the resources that we have. I'm talking about physical resources, right? Land, gold, oil, basically everything that the world is supplied with, we as a people have in one place, right?
In one
just
place.
One place. And at the same time, we hardly have any control of any of those resources other than to send it out to everyone else. And if you think about it, let's say diamonds, right? I've heard that there are beaches in Nigeria alone that you can walk along the beach and you can kick diamonds out of the sand. And yet, Zales, Zeidmans, and other European jewelry companies actually have ownership of the things that are coming out of the ground. And then when the natives walk down and think that they can pick up a diamond, they're either going to be arrested or somebody's losing a hand. So that means you don't even have access to the resources that belong to you, that are rightly yours, because someone has come in, convinced you that this is not yours. You don't own this wealth. We own it. We dictate what you get. We dictate what you have. We dictate what you say, what you do, what you think. And anytime any person comes in, and this is serious, anytime of our own people come in and try to tell you, no, this is what you are. This is what we're supposed to do. You have more individuals that are starting to awaken that spiritual awareness, but at the same time, you still have those that are so backwards in their way of thinking on a spiritual and mental level that they will actually try to tell their own people, no, it's this way of thinking that has put you and kept us in bondage, mental and spiritual bondage for so long, that you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't think this way. Off with your head.
The rhythm.
And the same time, as you said, the same time, someone has come in, changed the sound of the drum, and we are still moving to that which does not match the way that we dance.
Oh,
it just doesn't.
Don't match it to the new.
No. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say that for us to be a spiritual people and actually receive Chineke's abundance, our minds have to be convinced that we are deserving of it. We've been convinced that we're not deserving of it. And that is why, for the most part, we have become a beggar continent. We go to church all the time and we ask Chineke to bless us, to give us abundance of stuff. And Chineke is saying, look around, everything that you need and want is around you. I've already given it to you. What more do you want? But instead, our leaders will go outside of Africa with all these resources and beg for money. You're begging for money from outside of your wealth. And then people are taking your wealth, and when they give it back to you in little increments, you think you're getting something new. Your mind is still dancing to the old tune. The rhythm has changed. And that change is acknowledgement that we are good enough, we have enough. We must be willing to release past constraints and pains and regrets and lies so that we can move to the new rhythm, so we can open our eyes and see what we have. Nothing pains me more than young people don't have jobs. Why? Our young people are leaving the continent to go elsewhere, looking for wealth in Libya. Can we talk? Does Libya have what we have in Africa? Are the Libyans more blessed than the blessings we have at home that we can't seem to access so that the young people can have it and stay at home? They go to Spain. They go to places that they are ridiculed. But our minds are still stuck in lack. The rhythm has changed for everyone else, but we're still dancing to the last tune of the drum. The last one that was played 2 weeks ago, we still dance to it. The one that was played many years ago, we're still dancing to it. Everybody else is doing a different kind of dance, but our mind has a stop. The mind, the dance says up, down, down. That's what it is. Up, down, up, down. Other people are dancing, adding something to it, but we still do up. I know I'm sorry. But we still do up, down. We're not changing to the times. We must be willing to let go of all the innuendo, all the misconceptions, and all the poor judgments and experiences of who we are as a people, and realize the blessing is there for us. We just need to change our minds and go for it. You seem to want to say something.
Yeah, Fela Anikulapo Kuti made a song back in the 70s called Zombie.
Zombie, yes.
About on, left on, right on, and you know the rest of the story.
Yeah.
We're zombies, right?
Yeah.
We don't have the leadership to change things as far as elected government is concerned in Africa, the motherland, which you will hope that you have government in African countries that are pan-African. in the way they think. Now, those countries that have decided to think inward, if you listen closely to the ground, I mean, with your ears to the ground, you will hear footsteps of the ant. Look inwardly to solve your problem. Rwanda is moving into the 21st century. They just sent off a satellite, by the way, to make sure that there's internet access all over the country. Rwanda did that. Botswana is another country. You go over there, you don't even know you're in Africa. Senegal is now taking the next step.
That's the power of the mind.
It's the sudden realization that only you can stop a forest fire. Only you.
That's right.
Only you can solve the problem in Africa. And what we need to ask ourselves sometimes, you look at a rich man, they got a lot of money. And all you see is the money. But in your mind, there's always a question that you ask yourself, even though you may not have the courage to come out and say it. And that is, how did he get his money? Are we sitting around and finding out, or saying to ourselves, or trying to inquire, how are other nations doing it? Do we really want to change? Do we really want to change? Are we capable of changing our mindset? Are we capable of loving ourselves first? Love Africa. Love every positive, productive thing about who you are, your culture, just like the Indians do with their Hindu. When their national interest is at stake, they rally around Hinduism. The Chinese will rally around Buddhism. The Europeans will rally around Christianism. The Arab will rally around Islam. What are we rallying around? What is it about our culture, about our spirituality that we can rally around when our well-being is at stake, when we are threatened? How do we shield these influences from abroad that does nothing but to stagnate our growth? The rest of the world don't want you to understand that, like Nnamdi said, you have more resources in Africa, like Kagame of Rwanda said. We don't need to be better. There is nothing that we are importing. Thomas Sankara of Burkina Faso, he says, the food I eat is grown here in Burkina Faso. The clothes, the shoes that I'm wearing, say every one of you leaders here, when he was speaking to the OAU, he says, every one of you leaders in here are wearing shoes that were made somewhere else. I'm the only leader here wearing shoes that were made in my country. So if I need shoes, we could make shoes in my country. If I need beef, we can grow beef in my country. If I need rice, we could grow rice in my country. There is nothing. If you need a car, we make cars in Nnewi in Nigeria. There is nothing. We make parts to airplanes that support the Nigerian Air Force, even though the Nigerian Air Force is not all that, not much to write home about, but we have the capability of doing these things. There is no shame in our game. We have to understand that our condition is divine. Diversity is divine. There is nothing, even human beings, you can't find, there's only one UD, there's only one Ogele, there's only one Nnamdi. All the birds are not.
We are unique. Thank you.
We're unique.
We
all
are unique.
All African elephants. You got Indian elephants too. You got Indonesian elephants. Even Asia has lions. Most people don't know. North Africa has lions. East Africa, South Africa, Asia, India, Malaysia, they got lions over there. We ain't the only ones with lions. There are different kinds of ants. The bullet ant, the safari ant, the different kinds of dogs, German Shepherd, Beagle, you name it. Diversity is divine. The African mind has to understand that the differences we see in the world is unique, is divine. That's the way God intended it. The weather in the world is not all summer, there's winter, there's spring, there's everything. Different kinds of seas. There is nothing in the world that is static. Once we as Black folks see ourselves as part of this divine plan, that our uniqueness is divine, that's the way it is. There is no shame in being African. There is no shame in advocating a culture because other cultures are advocating theirs. You want to travel.
But what I want people to understand is this advocacy for our Africanness, right, is not advocacy to be different from other people, because the world, it's a global world. We are part of all of that. The thing that we are saying is that spiritually, we have to recondition our minds so that we can see the connection to that strength, that power that everybody else needs to be connected to, and use that knowledge. The sad part of it is that you've got African people starving. You've got African people living in squalor. You've got African people with all kinds of trash everywhere. And yet, frankly, you're the richest nation in the world. You're the richest continent. People are not coming to you because they're coming there to feel sorry for you. No, they're coming because there's something that you have. And then one more thing, when I say that the rhythm of the drum beat changes, that we have to change to, we also need to change the mindset that we on the continent are the only Africans, because we're not.
No, we're not.
There are Africans outside the shores of Africa.
Everywhere. It's a global community.
If all of us came together, if we stop seeing ourselves as the Jamaicans, the Haitians, the Africans, the Ghanaians, if we start seeing ourselves as one people and start supporting ourselves as one people, that is that change in the drum beat that we must gravitate towards.
Very, very
embrace each other. It's major, because that is where the weakness lies, not tapping into all the power, all the strength that we have. All of us collectively, as a matter of fact, I was just made the global leader for the women's mobilization for Pan-African Federalist Movement, Women's Mobilization Commission. I'm quite excited about that. Thank you. So my responsibility, is to mobilize women leaders all over the world to come together and see what part we can play in this mission to unite Africans. Because when you unite with it, understands that our unification will create a powerful financial block that people have to recognize. But because of our separateness, because we're all scattered and we're not coming together as one people, we will continue to see ourselves as less than and not having enough resources. When we have the most resources, think about it. If all African people came together, you're talking about over 1 billion people. Think about the financial power and strength in that. So when some people are, they shy away when you talk about Pan-Africanism, they don't understand what that is. It is you coming together as a people and using that strength, that unity, because quite frankly, we're not unified as people. And if your mindset is dancing to the past tune, you don't see where we are now, where we need to be. And that is as a block, as a human block, as a group that other people will have to reckon with. In our refusal to move away from the dictates of the past, we're not able to fit in squarely in the 21st century. It's important for us to know, as I indicated earlier, every one of us changes. We're all changing. Every aspect of us is changing. Our toenails, our fingernails, every aspect of us is changing. As we are changing, other people are changing as well. but they seem to recognize the change in them, and then they are moving towards what needs to be done to accommodate the change. We are not moving forward. As a matter of fact, we're stifled by holding on to the past, getting mad when somebody says, hey, you know what? Move away from all those stories. The story time is over. It's time to shake you up. Wake up. Wake up and join the new rhythm. Wake up and be the source of strength for us, for African people, for the world. You see, when we're doing well, the world is doing well. The world is telling us that we're not doing well, we shouldn't do well. And we say, okay, well, what can you give me just so I will subsist? Just so I can just survive. We don't need to just survive anymore. We need to be competitive. Survival is for people who are weak. You want to go beyond mere survival. You want to be competitive. As people are going to, for 10 minutes, they're paying millions of dollars just to go and see the space. Right? They're moving away from you. People are moving forward, doing crazy things, and we're still back here, praising on our knees. You know, come on, it's time to get up. Nandi, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
There's so much value being dropped. It's amazing. The one of the interesting things that I find to be very interesting is if you look at a vehicle, let's take a car.
Mm-hmm.
Got trains, planes, automobiles. Let's just take a car.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the 1920s, the way that a car was constructed in the 1920s is not the same way that a car is constructed now. But it's still a vehicle that people drive. People have cars all over the world, all different types of cars. But guess what? Even though some of them may have 4 wheels, 6 wheels, 3 wheels, 2 wheels, 1 wheel, the majority of those vehicles have an engine, right? And even without an engine, some of those vehicles still operate off of what concept? Propulsion, right? Mobility. If there's not an engine, then the idea of using your feet to pedal still applies to the same motion of moving forward, backward, side to side, but motion, propulsion, something
electric
move, or electric. It's still having some concept of propulsion, some way to get you from one point to the other. At the same time, you have so many different types of vehicles, right? And you have different brands of vehicles, right? So why do we think as an African people that the idea of being able to move still depends on someone else bringing the idea of how to move to us when we have all the resources necessary to create a freaking flying vehicle if we need to? The idea of us still having to hold on to an old idea that we need to depend on someone else bringing the concept that we already know exists within us, making the moves, making that move, getting, number one, put your foot on it. If it's a bike, put your foot on the pedal and move. Move forward. Stop thinking and seeing yourself as having to have someone else bring the future to you. You are the future. That's why I always say, like, on a spiritual level, we have a responsibility. That's why Chiism, Agadianism is so important. It's not saying that we're different from everyone else spiritually. We're saying that we are viable and valuable within our own on a spiritual level. Because every other group of people can progress, they can evolve, because they see themselves being able to take the same concept that has existed for hundreds of thousands of years and mold it in the image of them. We are not respected. We are not, I'm going to be honest with you, as an African people, we are not respected by the rest of the world. We can't, the only thing what makes us African cannot be just the clothes we wear. It cannot just be the food we eat. It cannot just be the music that we generate. And at the same time, those things have actually contributed to the connection of many different groups of people. Even as African people, we have different dishes, we have different clothing, it's beautiful, it's a wonderful thing. At the same time, other groups of people can come in and make your same clothes, the same food, and add a little bit of spice, and it can change that food in their community. In their community, they can add a little bit of spice to this, switch it up, and make it theirs. And you give those dishes away. The reason why we're not respected on a global scale, it's not because we have some of the highest paid athletes. It's not because we have some of the highest paid entertainers, or we create some of the highest paid entertainers, or we have some of the most gifted individuals that inspire every other people to do that, to do something, to take it and run with it. It's because on a spiritual level, we have not presented ourselves as being something worthy of respect.
True. I couldn't. There's no one disagreeing with that. That is just how you say, on the money. Ogile said something about, talked about the Jamaicans, the black folks in the Caribbean, and all that stuff, and it just ties exactly into what we've been saying from the beginning. Diversity is divine, right? You got diverse African cultures all over the world. Of course, we all came from the same place. Sometimes the question we should ask ourselves is, when we realize that no matter where you come from, if you're black, you're an African, you probably want to ask yourself, how did the Jamaican get to be in Jamaica? How did the Haitian end up in Haiti? How did the African American end up there? How did the British black folks in Europe, how did they end up there? Where did they come from? Of course, you're tied into the same place. The Genesis is the same thing. We all came from Sub-Saharan Africa, right there. And then we expanded all over the world. The next thing you want to ask yourself is, what did we do before the European came to Africa? What contributions did we make? What empires did we build? What is it that we did in all spheres of human endeavor? In architecture, in sciences, how did we cure diseases? What were we before we were re-socialized? What were we? What did we do before we were redefined? Who amongst us today, unlike the Nnamdi Azikiwe, perhaps the Martin Luther Kings and the Kwame Nkrumahs and the Marcus Garveys, the Jomo Kenyattas, the Thomas Sankaras, the Julius Nyerere, some of these great African leaders, the Queen Aminas, the Nzingas, where are they? Where are the Africans with the same kinds of mindsets to build from within? Where are they? I mean, I could point to one of them, Kagame, Rwanda. We're probably going to beat Rwanda to death. But that's the shining beacon. That's the shining light for all of Africa. Rwanda is an example of understanding that your salvation, anything that you are going to accomplish, is going to have to come from within. We have to understand how we got to where we are before we know where we're going. There are certain things that we got to talk about. It's painful, but we got to talk about it. And one of them is religion. all human systems are products of religion. We in theism, in Guardianism, cannot stress that enough. Your civic system, your political systems, your cultural systems, your economic systems, your educational systems are all products of religion. None of them is independent in how they came into being. The realization that something greater than yourself must be this creator is what led to building societies, building states, and building empires. We need to have an educational, an incessant educational system that teaches us how to think, how to reason, how to learn from other nations, to understand our condition, how we got here, where we are, where we're going. We don't have that understanding. We don't have it in Africa. We don't have it in the African American community. We don't, all we know about ourselves is looking at our history from the perspective of subjugation. People that were nothing until the European or the Arab came to civilize us. People that played no role in what the world looks like today. So you don't see leadership, not just in the countries and government, but you really don't see leadership in African communities all over the world that says, we are what we are by the grace of God. There is nothing wrong with being African. There's nothing wrong with embracing my culture. There is nothing wrong in my divine state in this world. All the Europeans are Europeans, that's what they are. You can't change that. I don't want them to be African. I don't want the Chinese to be African. The diversity in humanity is what makes life worth living in the first place. I want to go to China to experience something different. If China was like Africa, I wouldn't go there. Why would I? If Europe was like Africa, why do I want to go to Europe? If the United States or South America was like Europe, why would a European want to go to South America or come to the United States? It is this diversity and its divine nature that we have to understand. If we understand that, then we can understand that being African is no shame. We understand that trying to take care of ourselves is not a shameful thing to do. It is part of how humanity works, and we should do the same thing instead of allowing somebody to redefine us, to tell us that the same God that all religions in the world believe created all of humanity, that the God that I worship is different from the God that they worship. No, it's all one and the same. We just have to understand that. Be prideful and be proud of who we are as Africans, and we're going to do great things in this world. But we got to understand that and stop feeling the shame of being African. Stop looking at yourself from subjugation.
But if you don't see, if you don't look in the mirror and see that power source that you are, that's in you, you know, then there's no way that you can feel comfortable standing next to somebody who feels that they have the power of God in them. Do you understand what I'm saying? If you believe that you are connected to the Most High, that the power is right there, which is African spirituality. Africans do not see, you know, we see the Creator in us. When we were born, our chi, the spirit, the male and the female energies were born with us. We're connected. We're still connected. Otubo, if you look at your what's it called again in English? your navel. That was where you were connected to the spirit in your mother's womb. And when that was cut, then that spirit walks out with you and is with you everywhere you go. But you see, spirituality is different from religion. Religion, in a sense, is man-made. Okay, it's a construct that's man-made. Spirituality is acknowledgement of connectedness with the Creator, with nature. But religion is not necessarily a bad thing, because intention is good. These are processes that we have to use, we have to follow to relate to God and to relate to each other. Duties that we must perform to give thanks to the Creator. And every country, every religion has its own, system of doing something. But we all, as spiritual beings, sometimes we don't even apply religion. We just apply that sense of connection with the Most High. It just is. But once you lose that spiritual connection and focus more on religion, which can be managed, then you really lose that connection. You become entrapped in a system, in processes defined by somebody that you have to follow. And sometimes it's not always in your best interest. The religions of your forefathers, these processes that our ancestors put together, is just as good as the New Age ones. It's just as good as the ones that were introduced 2,000 years ago. The problem that we have as a people is that we have abandoned the spiritual concept, thrown that away, which we were born with, which is natural. And now we have embraced something that disconnects us. We have got into systems that disconnect us from the Creator. Therein lies the confusion. That is why the mind is confused. That is why the mind is dumb. The mind is so confused that it doesn't realize that it has to move forward based on all the changes that you're going through. Your mind is supposed to change alongside of it. And we're stuck. And someone else's dictates, processes,
the mind is a terrible thing
dictators to us to follow. And if we don't follow, if we keep following something that doesn't work for us, we cannot blame God. We cannot blame Chineke. We cannot blame the Bible, whatever you call that. You have yourself to blame because you are supposed to evolve. Now, the tragedy is we always sit waiting for Chineke to do it for us. Chineke, please, I need this, do this. You're thirsty. It's like being thirsty and you've got water in the refrigerator. And you're standing by the curbside begging for water. Go to your refrigerator. We have everything we need to evolve, and but most importantly, to count on each other. I think that's the worst aspect of religion because it has not taught us that perhaps one of the greatest resources we have is each other. And as you pointed earlier, as we grow individually, we must make sure that our community grows along with us. As we change, they need to change as well. There is no pride. That's what we say, almost. There is no pride that you're doing well and people in your environment are suffering. We must have that mindset that our good is not just within us. It's also around us.
I need to say something real quickly.
With our communities. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say something. Do you ever see these videos on Facebook where there's a party and you see people with tons and tons and tons of dollars or nairas, and they're just spraying it out? Some of them put it in guns and start shooting it all over the place. I mean, it's consistent. Birthday party, wedding, whatever. Just a waste, a show off of money or whatever. And you say to yourself, we're the only people that do this stuff. And we never did this before the European came. They tell you it's African culture and all that kind of stuff. What you call invented tradition. And you kind of say to yourself, you got people like Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg. I mean, they're like billionaires. You don't see them having parties of them sitting over there showing off, this show off kind of thing. Look at me kind of attitude. And you see it in everything that we do. It's always, I said that at the beginning of the program. It's always about the individual. Right? How can I make myself feel more superior than the person around me so that they could extol me? Right? You look at people from a different prism. of individuality as opposed to community responsibility. Africans all over the world should be able to go to Africa and contribute to its growth without having to jump through any hoops. The Nigerian must see himself or herself the same as a Jamaican. We all came from the same place. A Jamaican just does not primordially belong on the island. It's just 400 years ago. That's it. The African American, his genesis started in Africa. That's what he is. That's what she is. The Haitian, the same thing. We need to start looking at ourselves as one unit. Together you can strike a mighty blow. This is how we're operating in the world right now. The Jamaican, the African American, the Haitian, the this and the that. We've never really come together, balled up a fist to protect ourselves from external forces that only want to exploit the Africans. They've been doing this for over 600 years. It started with the Muslims up north. And it's still going on till today. And you have very few leadership in our African communities, both in government and in organizations, that are willing to look at each other as one, come together as one, like Maya Angelou says, so that we can strike a mighty blow. I don't care if you're Jamaican, if you're Black, you're African, I know how you got there. You're my brother, you're my sister. We got to look at ourselves communally as one, just like Jews all over the world look at themselves as one. It doesn't matter if they're in Europe, it doesn't matter if they're in the United States, in South America, in the Arab world. As far as that's concerned, it's about Israel, whatever Israel is, wherever the boundaries are. Even though part of it may belong to the Palestinians, it's not really important. That's how they see themselves. Iranians all over the world have communities everywhere. They see themselves that way. Europeans, a British person doesn't care if they're in Japan, they're in South America, in the United States, or in Africa. They are the Queen's soldiers. They are British. There's a level of pomposity that goes along with it. Africans should do the same thing. We should start teaching our children. It's an educational thing. We have to start teaching our children about our contributions as Africans, what we were before slavery, before colonization, so that we stop looking at ourselves as beggars, as followers, as people who have been subjugated, and the only way for us to validate ourselves is to allow the person that enslaved and colonized us in the first place to redefine us. Everything that we do is European, is Arab, is foreign. It is not African. We have to become Africans again. We have to appreciate and ourselves in the world the way it is. There's no diversity is divine. Your Africanness, your culture is unique. It's part of this cauldron. Like Nnamdi was talking about a car. Cars just don't happen. You have an engine, you have a transmission, you have the ignition, you have the tires, you have the chair, the seats, you have all these components that come together to make the car what it is and make it drivable. This is what humanity is about. It's about components that come together to make life worth living. We should stop looking at ourselves as less. We should have courage to say we are what we are by the grace of God, because diversity is divine. And there's nothing wrong with me thinking like an African, because that's just the way it is. And once we're good. We have to do it. Start with people like me, you, the organizations that you're representing. We have to come together to see ourselves that way. Then we can really be able to function as a well-oiled machine. Drive the car.
Yeah, well, you have to understand. I think all of us need to understand. But sometimes the diasporans get very, very upset with us that are on the continent, and rightfully so, because there's a tendency to look at them as if they are foreign. All right, they were here for certainly some came on their own, but mostly they have ancestors who were forced here. They never gave up their sovereignty. They're still African people. They never gave up their sovereignty. They were taken away. So they have the right to go to Africa and become part of Africa.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that is, quite frankly, why the whole concept of United African States is to bring all of us, everywhere in the world that African people exist, to come together, to be a part of this federation, so that all of us, so the African Americans, or Jamaicans, or Haitians, or whomsoever, they can go to Africa and not need passports. I mean, not passports, not need visas. They need to be able to go and pick any part of Africa and be a part of that, because it's their right. They never gave up their sovereignty. And those people in Africa need to understand that is our strength. Them coming back home and establishing at home, that's part of our strength. That is the new drumbeat that we must be prepared to dance to. Our brothers and sisters want to come home, and we have to embrace them with open arms. This is a must. It's not even something that need to be argued about. It is a right that they have, and it is good for us. It's good for the African world once we come together. Okay. Now, we have gone several minutes past the time. This is a show that we're going to have a part 2. I always like to have a part 2 because it's a continuation of things that we weren't able to finish. But I want to say, Judy, before we leave, Nnamdi, do you have any passing last statement you want to make before we end the show? Nnamdi?
I could make a statement, but honestly, to tell you the truth, I'll go way too deep into it, so I'll save it for later.
Okay, for part 2 then, right? Now, yeah. Any parting words?
Yeah, love is the highest religion. Love yourself, love your neighbor, love your community, love everything about yourself. The perfect things and the little imperfections. That's what makes it worthwhile. After all, how are you going to know something is wrong if you don't know what's right? You can't know the down if you don't know what's up. How do you have your left if you don't know what's on the right? Everything works in tandem. Love those little imperfections and understand that your salvation is in your hand. And listen inwardly. You're the only one that can save yourself. We're the only ones that can save our community. Nobody's going to do it for you because nobody has any vested interest in our opulence but ourselves. We have to be able to know where we've been, to know where we're going. The African history goes beyond slavery and colonization. And I think in all African communities in the world, we have to start stressing that. If we start stressing that enough, it will start to change our mindset. We start to look at ourselves as contributors. But that mindset has to be changed. And the only way to change that mindset is to look beyond the microscope. You have to go beyond slavery and colonization to rekindle your past. Have a sense of pride in Africa. Because right now, most of the stuff we know about ourselves is what was taught to us after we were colonized and enslaved. And we have to go beyond that.
That's the drum. That's the
drum. You got to go beyond that to find yourself, to find ourselves, so that we can stand on our own merit.
That's right. That's right. And so we've come to the end of our program today. We started by talking about the fact that the drum beat has changed, and it is time for us to change along with it. This is not to say that everyone else is wrong and we are right. All we are saying is that for us to be competitive in this world, both in any aspect of living, in any aspect of life, we have to not be the ones that are in the back. We have to march along with other people. We need to be connected to each other as a people. We need to be interested in the well-being of our people. There is no pride in us begging the rest of the world to come and serve us. when we've got everything. The platter is full. All we have to do is sit down and know what to feed our bodies and our minds. And our minds must change. Our minds must change. We need to begin today. Change our mindset and understand that from us to Chineke, there is no distance. Whereas in the past, we were told that we must go a certain way to get to Chineke. We need to now understand, open our minds to understand that we need to march to our own drum beat. We need to re-establish with Chineke. We need to investigate how our ancestors did it, take what we can, but at the same time, remove what's not good, but take what is good. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Growth reminds us, growth demands that our mindset doesn't stay stuck. Growth demands that as we are changing, every aspect of us is changing. The one part that we have to over is our mind. And as long as we allow other people to tell us what to think, how to think, when to think, we will always be beggars. We're tired of being beggars. It's time for us to dine, as we say, dine at the table.
With kings.
Instead of sitting on the floor, picking up all the trash, all the leftovers, it's time for us to be at the table equally with everything else, because that's what Chineke wants for us.
Don't have to be
that is what Chineke wants for us.
Yeah.
But our minds have had to convince us that this is doable. Staying in the back is no longer working. Either you're going to march with the rest of the world or you march ahead and never behind. Time out for that. So I end today with this prayer. Chidiebere, Olisama Mwama. Ozani nile buri ọbụla niile akpatara aka si ugbu a bụrụ sọ mma ụwa niile si n'aka anyị hụ ihe site ugbu a ruo mgbe niile bi. All praises to Chi, the Creator, the Supreme Being, Chi the Good, Chi the Merciful, Eke the Magnificent, with grace. Let every way of our lives be light and all our acts be crowned with good. And may everyone prosper by the ministry of Chiism, Godian religion that reminds us right where we are, Chineke is, we are good enough. It's time to change our mindset so that we can march forward with the rest of the world. And so it is. Thank you all for being on this show today. I'd like to thank Aliyu Adamu, I beg your pardon, K.O. Miri, Hasib Bobo, Nosferatu, Martin Lewis, Charles Okuna, Obionyoha, and I don't see that. I know there's several other people, but I don't see their names. So that it's obvious that some people were watching. So we want to thank all of you for joining us. And somebody says, please make it part 2. Nosferatu says, make it part 2. We certainly will make it part 2. So next week, join us as we continue this discussion. We're going to add a few more things to it. That I think that today's show that we shared a lot with you. I want to thank Namdi and thank Dibia Chwaja Yudi for being here as always. Thank you. You all have a wonderful day. Yagazie.
Yagazie.